The wedding rehearsal was supposed to be a formality. Our families had already announced the engagement. The venue was booked. The dress fit perfectly. But I should have known better. Because 5 minutes into the rehearsal she showed up. Lexi Monroe, Ryan Carter's first love. She didn't even hesitate, walking straight toward him like she still had every right in the world. Ryan glanced at me, muttered, something came up, and just walked away. I blinked. Are you serious? He didn't respond. Instead he pointed toward one of the photographers. You practice with him. I don't need rehearsals. That was it. No apology. No explanation. The photographers and makeup artists around us stared in awkward silence. My fingers curled at my sides as he left without another word, jogging across the parking lot to Lexi, who was sniffling like she was in a soap opera. He didn't even notice that the man he shoved in front of me was my younger brother. Brilliant. Before I could decide whether to scream, cry, or laugh, I heard a voice I hadn't heard in over a year. Well, that was dramatic. I turned. Standing under the soft glow of the studio lights was Cole Bennett. My ex-boyfriend. The one I once loved so deeply I nearly ruined my life for him. And damn it, he still looked the same. Sharp jawline, unreadable eyes, posture relaxed like he owned the air around him. Cole. He smiled lazily, like we hadn't ended things in a storm of arguments and slammed doors. I was just passing by, he said, eyes twinkling with amusement. Want to take the photos with me? I should have said no. I really should have. But all I could manage was a breathless, sure. He changed into a tux without being asked. While he adjusted his tie, I stared numbly at my reflection. The photographer was trying hard to look like he wasn't listening, but even he couldn't hide the curiosity on his face. Closer, the man instructed. Be more natural. Intimate. Cole turned toward me and lifted an eyebrow. We've done this before. I gave a soft laugh, breath catching as he reached for me and pulled me gently into his arms like no time had passed at all. His hand slid to my waist, right where it used to rest back in college. My body still remembered the way he held me, confident, sure, like I belonged there. He leaned down and murmured, "So where's your fiancé?" "With his ex," I whispered back, smiling for the camera. Cole's eyes darkened. But he didn't say a word. Instead he pulled me a little closer, his touch turning possessive. Then I guess we'll make this our rehearsal. The photographer's instructions continued, but my mind wasn't on the photos anymore. It was on the heat of Cole's body against mine. The familiar scent of his cologne. The slight stubble on his jaw. God help me, I missed him. During a pose change, Cole leaned toward my ear. You free tonight? I nearly tripped over my dress. His voice was low and smooth, just the way it used to be when he whispered things that made my heart stutter. I tried to recover quickly. I have a fiancé. Cole smirked. He left you mid-photoshoot to chase his ex. I'd say the engagement is already shaky. I didn't answer. Guess he was right. Later I checked my phone. 20 missed calls. None from Ryan Carter. Perfect. I stepped outside into the cool evening air. Cole was waiting for me near the valet, one hand casually tucked into his pocket. Still free tonight? He asked again, that cocky glint in his eye. I hated that I nodded. We ended up in a supermarket. Not exactly the romantic destination you'd expect after a wedding shoot turned emotional disaster. But with Cole things had never been ordinary. He pushed the cart while I walked beside him, still in my dress, heels clicking against the linoleum floor. I figured we'd need dinner, he said casually. You're planning to cook? You think I've forgotten how? He replied. Please. I've been living alone for a year. Survived just fine. We bought vegetables, hot pot ingredients, even seafood. Everything I loved. He remembered. As we neared the register, I hesitated in front of the small, unassuming shelf near the checkout. Cole turned to look at me and froze. My heart dropped. Oh God, had I misread this? But he just laughed softly and said, "No rush. Let's eat first." Then he grabbed my hand and pulled me along. That's the thing about Cole. He always knew how to make everything feel normal, even when it wasn't. Dinner was warm and comforting. The kitchen steamed with the scent of garlic and spices as he prepared everything. I watched from the couch, still stunned by how seamlessly he moved through the space. This place barely looks lived in, he remarked, glancing around. Still not a fan of cooking? I shrugged. Still not a fan of domesticity. He smirked. Liar. When we finally sat down to eat, the silence between us wasn't heavy. It was familiar. Safe. When did you come back? I asked, dipping a slice of beef into the bubbling pot. A week ago. Did you really just happen to walk by the photo studio today? No. I stared at him, chopsticks frozen midair. I saw you go in, he added quietly. My throat went dry. Cole, do you still love me? He didn't blink. Didn't flinch. When did I ever stop? Our past had always been a wild ride, equal parts passion and rivalry. We met in college, both too ambitious for our own good. He was top of his class. I was the overachiever determined to outshine everyone. Naturally we clashed. And then we fell. Hard. Every fight, every kiss, every laugh had been intense. But eventually our ambition collided in a way that couldn't be resolved. He beat me for a major company project. I snapped. I screamed at him in a boardroom. Told him I couldn't date someone who would compete with me. He told me letting me win would be the biggest insult. So I told him to get out. He did. He left the country the next day. And that's when Ryan came back into my life. He was the safe option. The strategic choice. Our families had known each other forever and a marriage between us made sense. But love. That wasn't part of the equation. Not really. Lexi had broken up with him not long before we got engaged. Still, I always knew a piece of him was stuck in the past. I just didn't realize how deep until she returned and he ran to her without looking back. Now sitting across from Cole again, all those buried feelings surged to the surface. I should have been angry. That I just felt home. As we cleared the dishes, I asked, if I hadn't told you to leave that day, would you have stayed? He looked at me, serious for the first time all evening. If I thought you still wanted me, I would have stayed forever. After dinner, Cole walked into the kitchen to do the dishes like he'd done it 100 times before. I trailed behind him, leaning against the doorframe and watching as he scrubbed with casual confidence. I'll help, I offered quietly. He didn't look up. You don't have to. I stepped closer anyway, grabbed a towel and stood beside him. His voice broke the comfortable silence. Ava. I turned to him. Yeah. He paused, hands still in the soapy water, shoulders squared. Call off the wedding. I blinked, then laughed dryly. Oh, I plan to. Believe me, Ryan Carter and I are over. Even if it's a marriage of convenience? I don't care. It's tainted now. He abandoned me during our wedding photos to take care of his ex who had a cold. Cole gave me a long look, something unreadable behind his eyes. I thought you liked him, he said flatly. I rolled my eyes. So you knew I was taking wedding photos with Ryan? I knew. And you saw the announcement a year ago? Yup. Then why didn't you stop me? Cole finally put the plate down and turned to face me fully. His gaze bore into mine. Because I knew how stubborn you were back then. If I had shown up, you would have pushed me away just to prove a point. He wasn't wrong. I looked away, guilt simmering under my skin. So you weren't scared I'd actually fall for him? He returned to scrubbing. I didn't think you could. Something in his voice made my heart twist. A quiet confidence that didn't feel arrogant, just painfully certain. Did anything happen between you and Ryan? He asked suddenly, his tone low. No, I said without hesitation. We were together on paper. That's it. He didn't even like me. And I definitely didn't like him. Cole let out a low hum and turned off the water. Then without warning he pulled me into his arms. The next morning I woke up next to him. It wasn't awkward. It wasn't messy. Just felt right. Cole was already awake, his phone in hand. When he noticed me stirring, he turned the screen so I could see. It was a picture of us. One of the wedding photos we'd taken yesterday. I winced. They'll have to Photoshop everything anyway. He didn't reply. I sat up and stretched, rubbing my eyes. Let me guess, you're already thinking about breakfast. He turned to me, voice calm. Don't forget to break off the engagement. I won't, I said, standing and wrapping a blanket around myself. After we ate, I headed straight to the office. My parents ran Whitmore and Company, and while I didn't hold an official title yet, everyone knew I was next in line. I walked into the CEO's office and shut the door behind me. Both my parents looked up. Well, my dad asked. You've made a decision? I didn't hesitate. I want to call off the engagement. My mom raised her brows. Not just end it? No. I want it off the record. Clean. Permanent. My father leaned back, arms crossed. Ryan will be embarrassed. Good, I said. He should be. He humiliated me first. My mom's lips curled into a proud smile. That's my girl. We agreed to handle it discreetly but firmly. Tomorrow we would visit the Carter family to return the engagement agreement and publicly withdraw the arrangement. But even after the meeting I couldn't focus. I was thinking about Cole. He hadn't said it outright but I could feel it. He hadn't just come back for business. He came back for me. That night when I returned home he was waiting outside my door. Leaning casually against the wall like he hadn't been gone for a year. You didn't go inside? I asked. He shrugged. Didn't have the code. And you never registered my fingerprint. Oh. I took his hand without a word, led him to the keypad and input the code. Then I pressed his thumb to the sensor. There, I said. Now you can come in any time. His response. He pulled me into a kiss so deep it knocked the air from my lungs. I didn't know how long we stayed like that, pressed up against the front door, lips clashing like we were trying to make up for every second we'd lost. My heart thundered in my chest. Eventually we moved to the couch. I collapsed onto him with a sigh, resting my cheek against his shoulder. I missed you, I said softly. His arms tightened around me. I know. The moment was peaceful. Until my phone buzzed. Ryan. I stared at the screen. Then at Cole. You're not going, he said. I sighed. I just want to see him once. End it properly. Cole didn't say anything at first. Then he cupped my face gently. You'd better come back. Ryan had picked a quiet cafe. When I arrived he was already there, sipping coffee like he wasn't the reason I almost walked down the aisle with a stranger. He got straight to the point. That guy, he's the one I pulled in for photos, right? So this whole thing was just to get back at me. Ryan. We've been together for a year. I haven't even held your hand. And now you're kissing someone else in public. You walked out on me, I snapped. To take care of Lexi. You know what we had. It's complicated. She had a cold. She's pregnant, he blurted. I stared. He quickly added, not by me. But she's alone. She has no one. You're unbelievable. He looked me in the eyes and said, but don't worry. You'll still be Mrs. Carter. What? No one can replace you. It's just, I can't abandon Lexi either. I stood up. You're out of your mind. You slept with that guy, didn't you? He demanded. We're even now. I leaned in slowly and smiled. No, Ryan. We're not even. Then I slapped him. Hard. People turned. The cafe fell silent. Ryan's face flushed bright red. You humiliated me in front of everyone, I said coolly. Did you really think I'd marry you after that? He stood up, grabbing my wrist. You think you can just walk away from this? Watch me. I wrenched free and walked out, slipping into the waiting car where Cole sat in the driver's seat. All done? He asked casually. I nodded. He took my wrist and pressed his lips to it. Then he looked at me seriously. So can I go visit your parents now? Cole wasn't just asking to visit my parents. That question, can I go visit your parents now? Carried years of weight. If we hadn't broken up over that promotion. If I hadn't chased power through an arranged engagement. If Cole hadn't left the country to save his pride. We would have been engaged by now. Maybe even married. Instead we were here, finally on the same page but years late. I studied his face in the dim light of the car and something inside me softened. Do you think we'll break up again? I asked, voice low. He didn't hesitate. I won't let it happen. Not this time. I let my hand rest in his thumb running softly over my knuckles. I've thought about that day 1,000 times, he continued. What I said. What you said. If I should have just let you win. I turned to him slowly. Cole, you don't need to let me win. He met my gaze with a firm resolve. No, I want to. For the rest of my life I want to let you win. I smiled but something twisted in my chest. Don't make yourself small for me, I said. That's not love. That's pity. He squeezed my hand gently. No, this isn't me being small. This is me finally figuring out what matters. And for once I believed him. The next morning I brought Cole home to meet my parents. To say they were surprised would be an understatement. Cole Bennett, my mom whispered behind a polite smile. That Cole. The last time she'd heard his name was when she'd found me crying in the back office after our explosive breakup. But when Cole greeted her with grace and charm, I saw something shift in her. Her gaze softened. My dad, on the other hand, looked like he wanted to test Cole's strategic skills in the boardroom. We sat down for dinner, and by the time dessert came around, both of them were halfway in love with him. "This guy," my mom said, tapping her fork against her plate, "has CO written all over him." "Don't say that," I groaned. "You'll inflate his ego." Cole smirked. Too late. Later, as we walked out onto the balcony, he wrapped an arm around my waist. "Think your parents like me again?" "They never really hated you," I said. "They just didn't want to see me heartbroken." And now? I looked up at him. Now they're wondering why we didn't get married sooner. Over the next week, Cole stayed close, but never overbearing. We worked during the day and spent our evenings tangled in each other's arms or debating stock trends like nerds on a caffeine high. And then something changed. I stumbled across his laptop one night while he was in the shower. I only opened it to check an email, honestly, but I found something else instead. A folder. Named after me. I clicked. Inside were photos of me, candid shots from the past year taken during public events and business galas. And files. Files on Ryan Carter. Screenshots of emails, timelines of his meetings with Lexi Monroe. A document tracking when Lexi returned to the country. He'd been watching everything. Planning. Protecting me. I barely noticed Cole standing behind me until he said, "That's not snooping. I meant for you to find it." I turned to him, stunned. "If I had married Ryan," I asked, "would you have crashed the wedding?" His jaw tightened. "Absolutely." A few nights later, we attended a high-profile business gala. I was there for the networking. Cole was there for me. Ryan Carter, however, was there with Lexi on his arm, his ex-turned second chance. The moment he spotted me alone, he walked over. "You came alone?" he sneered. Before I could reply, he added, "Oh, right. Your new guy's just a photographer. Not really gala material, huh?" I didn't answer. He leaned in. "You regret ending it yet?" But before I could say anything back, Cole appeared. Oh, impeccable. Unbothered. Ryan's expression shifted fast, from arrogant to pale. He recognized him now. Cole Bennett. Shane Group's newly appointed CEO. And my ex-boyfriend. "Wait," Ryan stammered. "He's your guy." Cole slid a hand around my waist. "Let me introduce myself. Cole Bennett, PO of Shane Group. And Ava's first love." Ryan stood frozen, jaw working furiously but producing no sound. Behind him, Lexi's expression crumbled. "Enjoy the evening," Cole said coolly, steering me away before either of them could respond. In the restroom later, Lexi cornered me. "You need to stay away from Jason," she snapped. "You mean Ryan?" I asked. Freudian slip? She ignored me. "He's mine now. He's always loved me." I tilted my head. "Then why did he agree to marry me? Why did he leave you behind for years?" Lexi's mouth opened. Closed. I shrugged. "You know what? You're welcome to him. You don't want him? I want him as much as I want a root canal." Lexi glared. "You're smug now, but he'll come crawling back." "Oh, he already has," I said sweetly. I just slammed the door in his face. A few days later, Ryan actually tried to use business as leverage. He approached me at a vineyard where I'd been invited for a private pitch on the Yukon project, the one every major firm wanted. "I'll let you have Yukon," he said, "if you agree to continue our engagement." I laughed in his face. "Thanks for the offer," I said, swirling my wine. "But I already secured Yukon. While you were busy babying Lexi." He blinked. "What?" I leaned in with a smile. "You were so sure I needed you. Turns out I just needed you out of my way." Ryan turned an alarming shade of red. "You think this makes you better than me?" "No," I said. "This proves I am." I left him standing in the vineyard, ego bruised and future slipping away. Cole was waiting for me by the car as always. When I told him what happened, he smirked. "Remind me again why you ever dated him?" "Temporary insanity." Cole's hand slipped into mine. "You know I'd never let anyone touch you again, right?" "Yeah," I whispered. "I know." By the time the media announced the termination of our engagement, Ryan Carter was already in freefall. The official statement from both our families was polished and polite, a mutual decision due to changing priorities, but the truth simmered just beneath the surface. Everyone in our circle already knew what really happened at the wedding shoot. And then Shane Group dropped the hammer. Cole released carefully documented evidence that Ryan had remained in contact with Lexi Monroe throughout the engagement. Calls, private meetings, one suspiciously timed vacation. Within 48 hours, the Lou Corporation's stock dipped. Board members scrambled. Investors panicked. Ryan's father, once his fiercest advocate, issued a curt statement distancing the family from personal misconduct that had no place in business. Ryan became radioactive, unhireable, unwanted, untrusted. And just like that, the man who humiliated me in front of a full photography crew was finished. I almost feel bad, I admitted, lounging on Cole's couch a few nights later. Why? He asked without looking up from his laptop. I shrugged. Because he's not evil. Just pathetic. Same thing in our world, he replied dryly. I snorted. Remind me never to get on your bad side. Cole finally looked up, one brow arched. Too late for that. You already did. And then you broke my heart. And then you took it back. Yeah, well. I stretched my arms overhead. Guess I'm lucky you're in love with me. He set his laptop aside and stood, walking over slowly. You're lucky I'm obsessed with you, he corrected, pulling me into his arms. There's a difference. A week before we registered our marriage, Cole handed me an envelope. What's this? Read it. Inside was a legal agreement, transferring all of Cole's personal assets to me. Stocks. Property. A 40% stake in Shane Group. I blinked. Are you serious? He shrugged like it was nothing. You like this kind of thing, don't you? Cole. I want you to have it, he said simply. Whatever you want, it's yours. I stared at him, speechless. Don't overthink it, he added. I've always known you'd build an empire. I just want to stand next to you when you do. I didn't cry, but I wanted to. On the morning of our wedding, my grandfather called a board meeting. After I presented my results on the Yukon project and outlined my vision for the next fiscal year, he stood up, looked around the room and said, effective immediately, Ava Whitmore is the new CEO of Whitmore & Company. The board applauded. So did Cole. Later that day, standing beneath a floral arch at our wedding ceremony, he whispered in my ear, I feel like crying. What should I do? Cry, I murmured. Just cry. And he did. Just a little. That night, in our private suite, Cole wrapped me in a hug so tight I thought he might never let go. I used to dream about this, he said against my hair. Being yours again. Holding your hand in front of the world. I leaned back and kissed him. And now you've got the CEO of Whitmore & Company for a wife. He smiled. And I still somehow think I got the better deal. 2 weeks later, I found myself pacing the halls of Shane Group headquarters. Cole had told me he was planning something big. Something about restructuring their international partnerships. What he hadn't told me was that he intended to announce me as a co-chair for their next expansion phase. You're insane, I told him afterward. He just winked. And you're brilliant. So we're even. Meanwhile, Ryan wasn't doing so well. Lexi sold the house he bought for her and left the country with the money, and her unborn child. Rumor had it she moved to Paris. Started over. Her parting message to me? A cool, you warned me once. You were right. I didn't respond. Some battles just weren't worth fighting anymore. Especially when I'd already won the war. I wish I could say Ryan left me alone after that. But people like Ryan don't disappear quietly. They linger. Desperate. Annoying. Small. He showed up at a hotel lobby one night, where Cole and I were scheduled for a high-profile client dinner. I spotted him pleading with the front desk receptionist, clearly trying to get a meeting with Cole. Just 10 minutes with Mr. Bennett, he begged. Please. He knows me. When he spotted us walking in together, his face twisted in disbelief. You came to see him too? He snapped at me. Are you just doing this to rub it in my face? I tilted my head. If I wanted to humiliate you, Ryan, you'd already be on the floor. He turned to Cole, fury building. You think you're something special? Just playing second fiddle to a woman? Before Cole could respond, the hotel manager rushed over and bowed deeply. President Bennett will remove him immediately. Ryan's face drained of color. President? He whispered, staring at Cole like he was a stranger. You're Cole Bennett? Cole gave him a blank look. Did you think I was just a photographer? Ryan stammered. I thought you were just my first love, Cole said, pulling me close. And she's mine. Security escorted Ryan out while he shouted our names like curses. I didn't look back. On the ride home, Cole leaned over. I have to confess something, he said. I'm not actually a cold, overbearing I'm not that cool. Not really. I laughed. You think I don't know that? He smiled sheepishly. What if I'm the clingy type in relationships? You still gonna love me? I reached for his hand. Try me. He squeezed back. Best deal ever. The next time Ryan tried to reach out, he didn't even get to me. Cole shut it down. A public statement. Legal threats. A personal reminder that stalking your ex-fiancé was a PR disaster waiting to happen. Then Cole leaned into the mic and added, we wish him all the best, far, far away from us. A week after Ryan Carter was publicly blacklisted and quietly exiled from our world, I found myself sitting on the rooftop terrace of Shane Group headquarters, legs curled beneath me, watching the city lights blur into gold streaks on the glass. Cole joined me a moment later, sliding a warm cup of chamomile tea into my hands. You're restless, he observed, sitting beside me. I tilted my head. Is that your CEO instinct or your boyfriend radar? Neither. It's my husband intuition. I rolled my eyes but smiled. I guess I just don't know what to do now. You mean now that you've burned your enemies, inherited the company, and reclaimed your first love? Exactly, I said with a laugh. There's no one left to conquer. Cole leaned back, hands folded behind his head. Then maybe it's time to build. We weren't just talking about companies anymore. That week Cole and I began quietly merging more than just corporate interests. We started co-hosting meetings, leading pitch decks together, dividing up teams for parallel expansions. His reputation as the mysterious, hands-off heir was quickly replaced by a newer, more formidable version. The power couple who didn't just play to win, but played as one. People began calling us Bennett and Whitmore, like we were a firm of our own. Maybe we were. But peace, as always, came with unexpected interruptions. One evening, while preparing for a high-stakes investor dinner, I received a message from an unknown number. I need to see you. Please. One last time. Lexi. I stared at the screen for a long moment. My first reaction was to ignore it. But then I remembered what it felt like to be her. Left behind. Used. Rejected. Even if she had played her part in hurting me, I had no desire to kick someone already drowning. So I replied, tomorrow. 1 hour. Café Linnea. Lexi looked thinner than I remembered. Her cheeks were hollow, her posture slumped. She no longer wore the smug smile of a woman who believed she'd won the prize. Thanks for coming, she said, stirring her drink but not meeting my eyes. You're welcome, I replied calmly. Say what you need to say. I'm leaving the country for good, she said. I just wanted to apologize. I raised an eyebrow. For all of it, she whispered. Trying to steal Ryan back. Rubbing it in your face. Thinking I could win. I sipped my tea slowly. You didn't just try to steal him, Lexi. You succeeded. You had him. She looked away. I didn't win anything. For a moment I saw the version of her I might have been had Cole not walked back into my life. Had I clung to a man who couldn't choose me. She cleared her throat. I sold the house. I'm using the money to start over. Not with Ryan's help. Just mine. I nodded slowly. That's something. I wanted you to know, you warned me. You were right. I didn't say I told you so. I just stood up, took out a business card and slid it across the table. For your kid, I said. In case you ever need a lawyer or a recommendation. That's my personal line. Don't abuse it. Lexi looked stunned. Why are you being kind? Because women like us deserve second chances. Even when we don't get it right the first time. Cole wasn't thrilled I'd met with her. She manipulated you, he reminded me later that night. And I still walked away with everything, I replied. That's the real win. He stared at me for a moment. Then his lips twitched into a smile. God, you're hot when you're ruthless. I laughed and tossed a pillow at his head. Focus, Mr. CO. Life settled into something strange but beautiful. We were busy, yes, but not rushed. There were lazy Sunday mornings filled with fresh coffee and whispered jokes. Evening workouts that turned into flirty competitions. Nights in the office when we ordered takeout and finished decks side by side like we were back in college again. We still argued. Of course we did. Over strategy. Branding. Whether pineapple belonged on pizza, it does not. But now those arguments didn't end with slammed doors. They ended in kisses. And compromise. And growth. A few months later we hosted our first annual joint charity gala. Invitations were gold embossed. The press coverage was brutal and beautiful. Ryan showed up. Alone. To his credit, he didn't cause a scene. He lingered at the edges, tried to talk to a few investors, but most brushed him off. Then near midnight he approached me on the balcony. "Ava," he said carefully. "I just wanted to say congratulations." I turned to him slowly. "For what?" "Everything," he said with a weak smile. "You really pulled it all off." I studied his face. The cockiness was gone. The self-righteousness erased. What remained was a man who had lost everything he thought mattered, and finally realized why. "Thank you," I said softly. Then after a pause, "I don't hate you, Ryan. I just don't respect you." He swallowed hard. "Fair. You had chances. So many of them. You chose wrong every time." "I know." We stood in silence for a moment before I said, "This is the last time we speak." He didn't argue. Just nodded and walked away. Back inside, Cole wrapped his arms around me and murmured, "You okay?" "I am now." And I was. Really, truly, for the first time in years. A few days later my mother called. "So when are you two giving me a grandchild?" she asked bluntly. I nearly choked on my coffee. "Excuse me." "Don't excuse me. I see how that man looks at you. You're not exactly resisting either." I sighed dramatically. "We're not rushing anything. Just don't wait too long. That kind of love shouldn't be wasted." Her words echoed in my head for days. Especially as I watched Cole asleep on the couch one afternoon, head tilted back, soft snore escaping his lips, completely at peace in my home. Our home. He had risked everything to come back. Had given me his name, his trust, his legacy. And all I'd done was open the door and let him in. That was the thing about power. You could chase it. You could build it. You could even weaponize it. But in the end, peace came when you stopped fighting and finally chose happiness. The day I realized I didn't need to keep proving myself was the day Cole looked me in the eyes and said, "You already won. Not just the project. Not just the title. Not just the race we'd both been running for years. Everything." I had never wanted to cry from being seen before. But that day I almost did. A few weeks after the gala, my grandfather formally passed down his personal shares in Whitmore and Company to me. The move shook the family tree, especially among the cousins and board members who had spent years grooming themselves for the role. But no one could object. The Yukon project had already doubled our international revenue forecast. Cole and I had quietly secured a patent that would set our joint venture apart for a decade. My grandfather's faith wasn't based on sentiment. It was math. Business. So I didn't gloat. Not even when my cousin Thomas texted me a passive-aggressive, "Congrats." I simply replied, "Thanks. Lunch sometime." Because peace isn't just built with success. Sometimes it's built with quiet dominance and mature grace. That's what Cole always said. And I was learning. Cole surprised me with a weekend getaway to the coast. No boardrooms. No deals. Just the two of us, a rented beach house and sand between our toes. We didn't talk about business once. Instead we argued about who made the better pancakes, played competitive Scrabble that ended in a neck-and-neck tie, he cheated, and fell asleep on the balcony under a navy sky full of stars. The next morning I found him reading emails in bed. Again. "Seriously?" I teased. "You told me no phones this weekend." "It's not work," he said defensively. I peeked over his shoulder. "An online order confirmation. You bought a crib?" He froze. Surprise. I blinked. "Cole." His ears turned slightly red. "Okay, hear me out. I just wanted to be prepared. You know, in case." I stared at him for a second too long. He sat up straighter. "Too much. It's too much." I knew it. "No," I said softly, a smile tugging at my lips. "It's not too much." 3 days later I walked into my OB/GYN's office and asked for a test. 5 minutes after the appointment ended I sat in the lobby staring at the result in disbelief. Positive. I wasn't planning to tell him yet. But the moment I walked through the door and saw him standing there in sweatpants and a towel slung over his shoulder, sipping from his protein shake like he wasn't the most emotionally destabilizing person I'd ever loved, I blurted it out. "I'm pregnant." Cole blinked. I waited. He set his drink down very, very slowly. And then, he grinned. Not smiled. Not smirked. Grinned. Like a kid on Christmas morning who just got everything he ever wanted without even asking. "Holy shit," he whispered, stepping forward. I held up a finger. "Don't cry." Too late. His eyes were already misting. "Cole." He pulled me into his arms, kissing the top of my head like he didn't know what else to do. "I get to do this with you," he said, voice trembling. "We're going to be parents, Eva. You and me." I didn't realize I'd started crying until I felt a tear slide down my cheek. We held each other in the middle of the living room like two people who had spent a lifetime chasing ambition, and were finally handed peace. Of course my mother screamed. Not in horror. Followed by 17 voicemails, 3 pregnancy pillow deliveries, and a pregnancy-safe skincare set, couriered to my office in a cooler bag. Cole's parents weren't much better. His mother wept. His father texted a firm, "Excellent. About time. Name him after me." To which Cole replied, "We're not naming him Reginald. We told no one about the gender. Except my assistant by accident." She cried in the restroom stall at work and then tried to resign out of sheer embarrassment. Cole convinced her to stay with a raise and a monogrammed baby blanket embroidered with her initials. "She's a crier," he told me later. "I respect that. It means she's loyal." As my belly grew, so did the legacy we were building. Cole restructured the European division of Shane Group and positioned me as a strategic liaison. I hired a maternity COO for Whitmore and Company and still managed to chair all major meetings. There were days I felt powerful. There were days I couldn't fit into anything but Cole's t-shirts and cried because my ankles hurt. Cole never missed a beat. He carried my laptop when I was too tired to lift it. Rubbed my lower back when I refused to slow down. Left me sticky notes on the fridge like, "You're a goddess. But also eat. Please." Meeting at 11. Coffee on desk. "Decoff, I know, I'm sorry. You grew a lung today. That's impressive." Sometimes I caught him watching me like I was the most fascinating thing he'd ever seen. Like I was a miracle. One afternoon, halfway through my 3rd trimester, Ryan Carter tried to crawl back into relevance. He cornered my cousin Thomas at a conference and offered to collaborate. Claimed he'd been misrepresented, misunderstood, maligned. Thomas, bless him, responded with, "You faked an entire wedding photo shoot. You abandoned a CEO in heels and a gown. No one misunderstood that." The story made its way to me by evening. I didn't even bother to respond. Some endings don't require closure. They just require silence. One rainy night, I sat curled up on the couch, wearing Cole's hoodie and eating mint chocolate chips straight from the tub. He came in, damp from the rain, shaking water off his coat. "You good?" he asked. I looked up. "I'm perfect." He paused. "You look like an adorable blueberry." "Thanks, Reginald." He narrowed his eyes. "Don't push it." We laughed until we cried. That night, while we lay in bed, I turned to him and asked, "Do you ever miss the chase?" He blinked. "What chase?" "The corporate hunger. The ambition. The late-night strategy sessions. Fighting for titles. Competing with me." He pulled me closer, tucking my head beneath his chin. "Never," he said. "Because I already caught what matters." The delivery room was quieter than I expected. The chaos you see in movies, the screaming, the sweat, the panic, none of that happened. It was just me, Cole, a calm OB, and the distinct, overwhelming silence of a moment about to change everything. "Okay, Ava," the nurse said gently. "Last push." Cole squeezed my hand. "You've got this." His voice cracked. He was trying so hard to stay composed, but I could see the tears in his eyes. I wasn't exactly composed either. Then just like that, the room filled with the sharp, high-pitched cry of new life. "A boy. Our son." Cole didn't speak for a full minute. Just stared, jaw clenched, lips trembling, eyes locked on the tiny human placed gently in my arms. Then he whispered, "He looks like you." I looked down. "He looks like us." And just like that, CO, legacy, empire, none of it mattered. For that one moment, everything narrowed down to a swaddled boy with 10 fingers, 10 toes, and a surprisingly strong grip on Cole's pinky finger. We named him Miles Bennett Whitmore. Miles for movement. For the journey we took to get here. For the distance we traveled apart only to come back together. My mother wept again. Cole's father didn't argue this time, he just bought Miles his first trust fund. Consider it a backup, Reginald Bennett said gruffly. In case you two ever fall off a yacht or disappear to Fiji. Maternity leave didn't exactly exist in our world. But I tried. I really did. For the first 2 weeks I stayed home, breastfed, took naps, read baby books and wore nothing but oversized robes. But the moment the Whitmore board tried to greenlight a merger I hadn't approved, I was back in action. Cole found me in the nursery, typing a rebuttal on my phone while Miles snored softly in my arms. Are you seriously drafting a takeover defense one-handed? I looked up. I'm not going to let them vote on something that'll sink our Q3. He sighed and kissed my forehead. At least let me set up your desk in the nursery. So we turned the second guest room into my command center. Monitors. Noise-canceling glass. Baby monitor camera feeds. Nursing recliner. And a plush miniature sofa that Cole insisted be for executive cuddles. Some women bake cookies during leave. I quietly led an antitrust strategy that blocked a competitor from swallowing one of our European partners. Miles drooled on my spreadsheets. It was the perfect balance. The press of course had a field day. "Billion-dollar baby born to power couple," read one headline. "CEO mom returns to boardroom in 14 days," said another. "Bennett Whitmore baby first word. Stock split," a parody blog joked. I didn't mind. I was too busy falling in love. With motherhood. With Cole in dad mode. With the sight of my son clutching Cole's shirt while sleeping on his chest during conference calls. One afternoon, while reviewing product pitches from a marketing team in Shanghai, Cole walked in holding Miles in one arm and a bottle in the other. "Wanna take a break?" he asked. I gave him a tired smile. Define break. He placed Miles in my arms and nudged a plate of chocolate croissants toward me. "Eat, nap or snuggle? Pick two." I chose snuggle and croissant. He plopped onto the couch beside me, ran a hand through his slightly unruly hair and let out a sigh. "We've built a lot, haven't we?" I leaned my head on his shoulder. "More than I thought possible. Are you happy?" I looked at our son, at the empire still running in the background, at the man I once swore I'd never see again. "Yeah," I said. "I really am. But with power, peace doesn't last forever." The Carter family, what was left of them, tried to claw their way back. I heard whispers that Ryan was attempting to stage a comeback via Lexi. That he had convinced her to return and front a new brand under her name, trying to re-enter the market with some indie fashion startup. Cute. I forwarded the pitch deck to Cole with the subject line. "Guess who's back?" He replied 2 minutes later. "Shall we crush them before or after bath time?" I didn't engage at first. But Lexi couldn't help herself. She attended a fashion event where she gave a smug little interview to an influencer. Said she had found her voice, and was finally moving past past mistakes. Then casually mentioned me by name. "She's very successful. But not everyone wants to be a CEO married to a control freak," Lexi said on camera, laughing into her glass of champagne. "Some of us like freedom." The clip went viral. Lexi clearly underestimated the public's loyalty to Bennett and Whitmore. Within 48 hours, 3 of her sponsors pulled out. One of her co-founders issued a statement distancing themselves. And a leaked video of Ryan yelling at a pregnant Lexi during a board meeting surfaced from nowhere. "Oops," Cole said, sipping wine that night. "Guess some files just fall into journalists' inboxes." I said. "Weird how that happens." He grinned. "You're still the best villain I know." "I'm a mother now," I reminded him. He leaned close. "A hot, dangerous mother." I smacked his arm. He kissed my cheek. And just like that, Lexi was history. Miles turned 6 months old and the world kept spinning. We launched our first joint philanthropic program, funding scholarships for young girls in tech and business. My old high school invited me to give a speech. Cole stood in the back holding Miles, beaming. I stood on stage, looked out at the wide-eyed teens and said, "Ambition is beautiful. But never let it blind you to joy. Because joy is what keeps the empire standing." I glanced at Cole. He winked. Later that night I climbed into bed beside him, our son sound asleep in the nursery. I tucked into his side and asked, What would you have done if I hadn't forgiven you? Cole thought for a long moment. Fought harder. Waited longer. Or maybe I would have let you go. If I thought that's what you really wanted. I didn't say anything. Just kissed his chest and listened to his heartbeat. He whispered, but I would have always loved you. Even from far away. I closed my eyes. That was the blueprint of our forever. Not perfection. Not the absence of pain. Just choice. Every day again and again. We chose each other. You really don't want to marry someone richer? That was the question a Forbes intern accidentally asked me during a brand event when Cole and I arrived holding hands. He flushed red immediately after the words left his mouth. I mean, not that you're not successful, actually you're both successful, I just meant. Cole chuckled behind me. I leaned in with a smile. Let me help you out. I didn't marry someone richer. I married someone smarter. That quote ended up on social media for weeks. By now, people had stopped trying to separate us. Professionally, romantically, or publicly. Bennett Whitmore wasn't just a couple's name anymore. It had become a brand. A philosophy. Power with heart. Intelligence with grace. Fierce loyalty with fierce love. We weren't competing with each other. We were multiplying each other. And I had never been more content. But that didn't mean it was easy. The higher you rise, the more people want to test if you'll fall. Competitors who once dismissed me as just a pretty engagement pawn were now scrambling to keep up with my board strategies. Investors who had ignored Cole during his low-profile years now chased his name like it was currency. We were partners in every way. But I never let go of my edge. And Cole never let go of me. We took turns being ruthless. When I caught an internal manager leaking data to an external firm, I didn't go through HR. I simply told Cole. He nodded, opened a file on his tablet and said, already drafted the dismissal letter. Want to add a non-compete clause. You really know how to turn me on, I replied. He smirked. Then you're going to love the forensic audit I scheduled for their partner accounts. The truth is, Cole was still that cocky, competitive genius from college. But he was mine now. And more importantly, he had learned the one lesson I had spent years mastering. You don't have to destroy someone to win. Sometimes you just have to leave them behind. That lesson came full circle when we ran into Ryan again. It was at a pitch night for a new VC accelerator. He was there as a guest advisor trying to revive his reputation in tech circles. He wore a cheap suit, no tie, and a fake smile that screamed effort. I didn't intend to speak to him. But of course, fate doesn't ask permission. Ava. He'd accidentally called me by my old college nickname. That alone told me everything I needed to know. I turned slowly. Ryan. He offered a sheepish smile. You look good. You look like you're still guessing passwords to success. That wiped the smirk off his face. I just wanted to say, congratulations. You really did it. I know, I said. He blinked. Everything. Motherhood. Cole. I tilted my head. And yet you still left me for someone who had a cold and a sob story. I made mistakes. No, Ryan. You are a mistake. He opened his mouth, but I didn't give him the chance to speak. Let me give you something, I said, reaching into my bag. I pulled out a card and held it between two fingers. He took it cautiously and flipped it over. It was a reservation for a vineyard in the countryside. The same vineyard where he had once tried to bribe me with the Yukon project in exchange for staying in a fake engagement. Why are you giving me this? I smiled. So you can revisit the exact spot where you lost everything. Cole met me near the elevator, raising a brow as I approached. Let me guess, he said. Ryan tried to be relevant again? He tried. Did he beg? Almost. Cole looked pleased. Should have filmed it. I gave him a gift instead. Oh, a reservation. At the vineyard. Cole stared at me for a moment. Then he laughed. God, I love you. Later that night, while we lay in bed, I asked him something that had been on my mind for a while. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't broken up? He ran his fingers through my hair. We would have gotten married. Too young. Too fast. Too competitive. I turned to look at him. And it would have failed. I swallowed. You really believe that? He nodded. Back then we both wanted to win. We didn't know how to share. He kissed my forehead. But now I know that when you win, I win. And when I win. He gestured toward the ceiling. You redecorate the entire damn house and say, "We're investing in comfort." I laughed into his chest. You love that sofa. I do. The next morning I had coffee with my father on the balcony of Whitmore headquarters. You know, he said, glancing at the skyline, I thought marrying Ryan was your power move. It was, I said honestly. But it wasn't the right kind of power. And Cole is my peace. My dad nodded slowly. I've spent years chasing dominance. But you, he looked at me with quiet pride. You've built legacy without losing your softness. That's harder than empire. I blinked, caught off guard. You think I'm soft? I think you're strong enough to be soft. I didn't say anything after that. I just smiled and sipped my coffee, watching the city I'd learned to rule without losing myself. Back home that evening, Cole was feeding Miles a bottle while half listening to a podcast on market inflation. Hey babe, I said, shrugging out of my blazer. Do you ever miss the chase? He tilted his head. What kind? The hungry kind. The ruthless, desperate kind we both used to love. He thought for a moment, then shook his head. I used to think winning was about having more, he said. Now I know it's about choosing less. And choosing it completely. I walked over and kissed the top of Miles' head, then leaned down and kissed Cole too. Then let's keep choosing this, I said. He smiled. Every time. The ring wasn't flashy. It didn't come in a velvet box or with a drone light show or a viral video proposal. It was simple. White gold. Oval cut. Barely a whisper of diamonds along the band. Cole handed it to me while we were brushing our teeth. Literally. We were standing side by side, both in pajamas, toothpaste on our lips, when he turned off his electric toothbrush mid-buzz and said, You never actually got a ring. I blinked at him in the mirror. He held out a tiny box with one hand, completely casual. His hair was messy. He was barefoot. So here, he added, marry me again. Properly this time. I stared at him like he'd lost his mind. I already married you. I know, he said. But I want to do it the way you deserve. The dress, the aisle, the flowers. No photoshopping required. I spat out my toothpaste. Are you serious? He grinned. Dead serious. I want to see you walk down that aisle and know there's no one in the world stupid enough to walk out on you ever again. We picked a date 6 weeks out. Not because we needed the time, God knows I could plan an entire acquisition in 3 days, but because I wanted to enjoy it. This time the dress wouldn't hang untouched in the closet. This time the flowers would be for me, not some press release. This time the guest list was short. Just family, close friends, and every single woman who had ever been underestimated and deserved to see what choosing yourself looked like. I was walking out of a final fitting when I ran into Ryan again. Of course. Because life has a sick sense of humor sometimes. He was sitting at an outdoor cafe across the street, sipping espresso like he belonged in the picture. I almost walked past. Almost. But then he looked up. And because the universe likes theatrics, he saw me just as a delivery guy walked by holding my name printed across 3 designer garment bags. His face paled. He stood up. Ava. I turned, sunglasses still on. Don't, I said flatly. Don't ruin your own illusion. Let me stay the villain in your sad story. He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. I heard about the wedding. I figured. He hesitated. You're really happy, huh? I shrugged. I'm free. Same thing. He looked like he wanted to say more. Like he needed one last scene. But I gave him nothing. I just walked away. 3 days before the ceremony, my mother sat me down in the kitchen. Not for some big talk or emotional moment. Just mother-to-daughter realness. You've done it all, she said. Fallen, rebuilt, ruled, rose. Then she reached across the table and held my hand. But this is the only thing that matters now. You didn't marry to gain power. You married someone who let you keep it. I didn't cry. But I almost did. Because she was right. The morning of the wedding I woke up before sunrise. Not out of nerves. Not out of anxiety. Just excitement. For once there were no ghosts in the mirror. No bitter words. No old wounds. Just me. In white. About to step into a life I chose completely. My father walked me down the aisle. Miles was in a miniature tux, yawning adorably in my mother's arms. Cole stood at the altar in a crisp navy suit, looking like the most dangerous man in the world and the softest thing I'd ever known. When I reached him, he took my hand like it was always meant to be there. And for once I didn't feel the urge to run. I just stood still. Strong. Steady. Happy. I promise, Cole said, sliding the ring onto my finger, to never leave your side. To never Photoshop myself in. To never treat you like an afterthought. You're not the background. You're the story. My vows were simpler. I promise, I said, to never compete with you again. Unless it's a game night. Then you're going down. The crowd laughed. He grinned. And just like that, we were married again. This time by choice. Not strategy. Not arrangement. Not convenience. Just us. At the reception, my grandfather stood up and toasted us. My granddaughter, he said, voice firm, built a business that made me proud. But she built a life that made me jealous. Cole raised his glass and said, she built both. Later, I stood in the garden watching Miles chase bubbles. Cole wrapped his arms around me from behind, chin resting on my shoulder. You did it, he whispered. No, I said, we did. He kissed my neck. Then murmured, let's do it again. I turned my head. You mean another baby or another empire? He grinned. Whichever you'll let me build with you. 6 months after our wedding, the name Bennett and Whitmore officially became more than just a nickname. It became a brand. A company. A legacy. We launched our joint investment firm with quiet ferocity. No splashy press conference, no launch party, just a slow roll of bold acquisitions and brilliant innovations. The logo was minimalist. The power behind it, anything but. We didn't just fund startups. We built futures. Especially for women. Especially for the underestimated. Especially for people who were told they were too soft to win. The first time someone pitched us with shaky hands and stammering nerves, I paused the meeting and handed her a glass of water. You're not here because we're doing you a favor, I told her. You're here because we believe in your idea. Now show me how you're going to make it better than mine. Her eyes sharpened. He nailed it. And Cole smiled at me like he'd never been more in love. That was the thing about power. Real power doesn't scream. Doesn't need to. It simply exists. With elegance, with grace, with the kind of control that comes from knowing who you are without needing to prove it anymore. We had nothing left to prove. Only more to build. On our 1-year anniversary, Cole took me back to the rooftop of Shane Group headquarters. The place where it had all turned. Where I realized I didn't need to destroy anyone to win. Where I realized that sometimes peace looks like a man who carries your bag, folds your spreadsheets, and kisses your stretch marks like they're poetry. Remember this view? He asked. Hard to forget, I said. I used to look down on this city and wonder if I'd ever feel enough. And now I look down and think I built this. Cole nodded. You did. We stood in silence for a while. Then he whispered, there's something I've been working on. The next day I opened a file folder he left on my desk. Inside, plans for a new global headquarters. Not named after him. Named after me. The Ava Whitmore Center for Leadership and Legacy. Because you don't just build companies, he'd written on the card inside. You build people. I stared at the blueprint, blinking fast. Then I turned the page. The second part of the plan? A daycare and mentorship program on the top floor. For new mothers in business. With a plaque that read, we're not balancing both. We're owning both. That night I didn't say anything. I just walked into his office, held his face in my hands and kissed him like it was the first time. You really are the man I should have loved first, I whispered. He smiled against my lips. You did. You just needed time to grow into the kind of woman who wouldn't settle. Miles started walking at exactly 13 months. Cole missed it by 2 seconds. He ran and holding a juice box and skidded to a stop as Miles took his 5th step. I almost caught it, he wailed. It's okay, I laughed. I'll lie and tell everyone you did. He kissed me so hard I dropped the baby monitor. One afternoon, I received a box in the mail. No return label. No note. Inside, a photograph. The one from our first wedding photo shoot. The one Ryan had abandoned. Only this time it had been edited, crudely. His image had been cut out. Literally. I stared at the empty space next to me in the picture. Then slowly turned the photo over. On the back, scribbled in unfamiliar handwriting. You filled the empty spot better than we ever could have. I didn't tell Cole. Some ghosts don't need exorcism. They just need silence. Months passed. Then years. Miles got older. Learned to say leverage before he could say cookie. We launched more projects. Mentored more women. Gave more second chances than most thought wise. But every night we returned home to each other. To late night snacks and baby monitors and soft jazz playing in the background. To love not loud, but real. One night years later, as we stood in our backyard watching Miles chase a flashlight across the grass, Cole turned to me and asked, "If you had to choose it all over again, every betrayal, every failure, every step, would you still take the same path?" I thought for a long moment. Then I said, "If it leads here, yes. Every damn time." He nodded. Then he whispered, "Let's build one more thing." We never stopped building. Not just businesses. Not just empires. But each other. And in a world that once told me love and power couldn't coexist, I became the woman who proved they could. Because I didn't just rise. I rose loved. And that made all the difference. The end.